The first thing they noticed wasn't the human's face, it was the fact that he smiled while standing in a war zone. No helmet. No visible weapon. Just that calm, infuriating, almost American smile. That was before they realized this was the one they called Ghost. And by then, it was too late. From orbit, the human outpost looked unimpressive, a few squat, gray structures in a barren desert, heat shimmer distorting the view. The Trevani delegation expected a struggling frontier settlement. Instead, they found a place that felt deliberately ordinary, as if someone wanted it to look unimportant. Ambassador Velthric stepped onto the landing pad, his ridged brows lifting at the warm air and faint smell of roasted something. "Burnt vegetation," he murmured to his aide. "It's called coffee, sir," the aide replied, consulting her datapad. "Humans consume it, compulsively." A human in a faded uniform stepped forward. Lean build, short dark hair, relaxed posture. His handshake, unnecessary, Velthric thought, was firm without aggression. "Ambassador Velthric," the man said. "Welcome to Outpost Jericho. I'm Commander Hale. Most folks just call me Ghost." The smile was there again, mild, as if this meeting were a social visit. "Ghost? A peculiar title for a diplomat," Velthric said. "I'm not a diplomat," Hale replied, "but I do host them sometimes. Would you like some coffee?" The alien aides exchanged glances. Velthric waved it off. "Our physiology is incompatible." "That's a shame," Hale said lightly. "Best peacekeeping tool in our arsenal." The tour began with the usual pleasantries. Hale moved at an unhurried pace, pointing out the outpost's defensive perimeter, hydroponics bay, and fabrication workshop. His commentary mixed technical details with small cultural notes, as if the aliens were tourists. Velthric noticed a strange habit. Hale asked questions, not obvious ones, but sharp, angled inquiries that probed at logistics, the size of the Trevani escort fleet, the timing of their patrols, supply schedules. He asked with the same tone one might use to ask about the weather. At one point, they passed a storage yard. Stacks of crates bore Trevani markings. Velthric frowned. "How did these get here?" Hale shrugged. "Trade surplus. Your ships offloaded them last month, remember? I'm sure it's just a paperwork thing." His eyes didn't match the smile. In the mess hall, Hale offered a steaming cup to one of Velthric's guards. The guard sniffed it, recoiled. "This smells like burnt dirt." "Close," Hale said. "Burnt beans. Works better than diplomacy in the mornings." Velthric decided the man was harmless. Humans were notorious for eccentricity. This one seemed more interested in beverages than politics. Still, there was something deliberate in how he carried himself. Even his casual posture felt like a choice. They reached the comms tower. Hale leaned casually against a console while a technician adjusted the array. "You'll notice we upgraded the signal filters," he said. "Reduces interference. Also makes it easier to sort messages." Velthric's frills twitched. "Sort. Yeah. Organize. Prioritize. Redirect." Hale took a sip of coffee. "Helps keep the clutter down." Velthric made a note to ask his intelligence chief about it later. The walk back to the landing pad took them past a row of maintenance drones. Hale tapped one with his boot. "Ever seen one of these? Runs 20 hours on a charge, fixes almost anything, and if you give it enough rope, well, you can probably guess." Velthric couldn't. "Guess what?" "Never mind," Hale said. That faint smile again. At departure, Hale clasped Velthric's forearm in the human manner. "Safe travels, Ambassador. And don't be a stranger." As they boarded, Velthric caught a murmur from two human soldiers nearby. "Does Ghost know they're here early?" one whispered. "Yeah," the other replied. "He's already adjusting." Velthric dismissed it at first. But hours later, aboard his ship, he found himself replaying those words. Adjusting to what? 12 hours earlier, a report slid across Hale's desk. Satellite feeds. Ship manifests. Trevani patrols shifting closer. He tapped a line on the report, frowned slightly, then stood. All right, he said to his comms chief. Move up Phase 3 by 48 hours. And double-check the grid in Sector 5. I don't want surprises. You're expecting trouble? The chief asked. I'm expecting opportunity, Hale said. Then he smiled. Back on the Trevani flagship, Velthric's aide was reviewing the tour logs. They keep strange inventory records, she said. Several shipments missing, replaced by unlisted equipment. Human incompetence, Velthric said. Perhaps, she replied. Or perhaps it's something else. Velthric looked out the viewport. The human outpost lay behind them, quiet and unassuming. For the first time that day, he wondered if it was an act. The Trevani fleet's command chamber glowed with cool blue light, consoles arranged in a circle around a central holodisplay. A rotating image of the human outpost hovered above the table. Ambassador Velthric stood at the edge, watching younger officers smirk. Harmless, one muttered. Their commander offered me bean water. Another chuckled. It smelled like burnt soil. Savages. Only Admiral Vortha's expression stayed hard. The old warrior's crests twitched. You think they are harmless because they smile? Ghost is not a man you meet twice. Velthric scoffed. Old myths. Humans are stubborn, yes, but tactically crude. Vorth didn't look away from the hollow. Then you've never watched one prepare for a fight they know they will win. While they debated, Ghost was already aboard the Turnash, the Trevani's third-largest carrier, officially for a cross-cultural tour. He strolled through hangar bays with a cup of coffee in one hand, his other tucked casually into his jacket. These fighters, Ghost said, nodding toward a sleek row of interceptors, look familiar. Model based on the K-7 chassis, right? The ship's captain blinked. That's classified. Ghost sipped. Oh, sorry. I assumed since we retired that design 2 centuries ago it was public knowledge. The captain's brow ridges tightened. It's not obsolete. Of course not, Ghost said warmly. Just charmingly vintage. In the mess hall, Ghost sat across from 2 Trevani engineers. They were eager to talk about their warp core efficiency. Ghost listened, asked questions about cooling systems, maintenance cycles, storage redundancy. His tone was conversational, but by the time he left, he knew their core's refuel schedule, its weak points, and how often it was left unguarded. Later, in the treaty room aboard the flagship, the Trevani delegation laid out a document with careful pride. Every clause tilted in their favor. Trade concessions, restricted human military presence, even patrol limitations. Ghost leaned back in his chair, scanning the text. He took his time, sipping coffee, occasionally glancing out the viewport as if bored. After a long silence, he set the document down. Ah, he said softly. So this is the practice draft. Velthric frowned. Practice? Well, you wouldn't expect me to sign this, Ghost said. It's obviously a warm-up. Very creative, though. The alien negotiators bristled. Every term here is reasonable. Oh, absolutely, Ghost agreed. If your goal is to make us less of a problem for you. He smiled, not unkindly. But here's the thing, humans don't do less of a problem. We either are your problem, or we're your solution. Velthric's frills twitched. You imply we need you. I imply nothing, Ghost said. I'm telling you. That evening, a Trevani patrol ship returned from the outer ring with an odd report. Human patrol patterns around Jericho had shifted. Slightly. Almost imperceptibly. Routes bent at strange angles, Some stations doubled up, others left unmanned for hours. Nothing openly hostile, but the patterns made no strategic sense. Velthric dismissed it as human inefficiency. Admiral Vortha's eyes narrowed. "They're moving us." The next morning, Ghost accidentally mentioned to a Trevani officer that 3 of their freighters had been rerouted for joint logistics exercises. The officer, confused, pulled up the records. The reroutes were genuine, but signed off with the officer's own authorization code, one he'd never used. When he confronted Ghost, the human only shrugged. "Administrative error. Happens to the best of us." Velthric's patience began to thin. On the 4th day, he confronted Ghost directly. "Your people are moving our ships without permission." Ghost tilted his head. "If that's true, Ambassador, then someone in your fleet must have authorized it. Humans wouldn't dare take such liberties." Velthric hissed. "You think this is amusing?" "Not amusing," Ghost said, standing. "Necessary." That night, Velthric awoke to an alert. The holo display above his desk showed a blinking red icon. One of their deep space supply depots had vanished from sensors. No explosion. No debris. Just gone. His aide's voice came over the comm. "We've triple-checked. It's as if it was never there." Velthric's frills stiffened. "Ghost." On the other side of the sector, Ghost sat in a dim-lit ops room, watching the depot's last transmission flicker out. "Cargo secured?" he asked. A voice crackled back. "Every crate. No traces left." "Good," Ghost said. He glanced at the chrono. "Phase 3 begins at dawn. Tell the engineers to look casual." By now, whispers about Ghost were circulating through the Trevani fleet. Younger officers still joked about the human's slow walk, his obsession with coffee, his habit of asking harmless-sounding questions. But others were starting to notice a pattern. Every ship he visited experienced subtle changes afterward. Comm routes shifted, storage bays resealed, patrols rerouted. Admiral Vorth requested a closed-door meeting with Velthric. "He's mapping us," Vorth said. "Piece by piece. He's not here for diplomacy. He's positioning for a strike." Velthric shook his head. "The human fleet is too small." Vortha's gaze was cold. "Size is irrelevant if your enemy knows exactly where you'll be before the first shot." The next day, Ghost appeared on the flagship again. No escort, no weapon, just that same mild smile and a steaming mug in his hand. Velthric met him at the docking bay. "We need to speak privately." "Of course," Ghost said cheerfully, falling into step beside him. In Velthric's office, the doors hissed shut. "I know what you're doing," Velthric said. "The reroutes. The missing depot. This ends now." Ghost sipped his coffee, then set the mug down with a soft clink. "Ends? Ambassador, it hasn't even started." For the first time, Velthric felt the smile didn't reach the human's eyes. The Trevani flagship's war room smelled faintly of overheated circuits and tension. Admiral Vorth stood rigid at the center table, hollow icons of their fleet scattered like a child's careless game. Velthric entered, his frills drawn tight. "They've taken another," Vorth said flatly. Velthric scanned the hollow. One of their forward relay stations. Gone. No explosion, no distress beacon, only a blank patch in the network. "Where?" Velthric asked. "Sector 12. The humans were there 2 days ago." Velthric's jaw tightened. That could be coincidence. Vortha's eyes, black and unblinking, held his. "Ambassador." Ghost does not do coincidence. Ghost arrived at their HQ that afternoon, unhurried as always, coffee in hand. The guards at the docking bay stepped aside, unsure whether they had orders to stop him. The human had a way of walking like he belonged everywhere. Velthric met him at the lift. "You seem unconcerned about recent disappearances." Ghost's expression was politely puzzled. "Disappearances? Depots. Stations. Our assets, Velthric said. Gone without trace. Ghost sipped his coffee. Strange. Sounds like someone's been busy. You expect me to believe humans aren't involved? I expect you to believe whatever keeps you sleeping at night, Ghost said pleasantly. They stepped into the interrogation chamber. No guards. Just a round table, 2 chairs, and a faint hum from the lighting. Velthric gestured for Ghost to sit. You're not here for peace, Velthric said. Ghost set down his mug. I'm here for stability. Stability? Velthric scoffed. Your people are destabilizing the sector. That's one way to look at it, Ghost replied. Another way is, we're removing pieces from the board before they cause bigger problems. By stealing them? By moving them, Ghost said. Ownership's a flexible concept in galactic politics. The door slid open, and Admiral Vorth entered. His voice was low, steady. Why us, Ghost? Ghost turned to him. You were on the wrong trajectory. Too much fleet buildup. Too many border exercises. Sooner or later, you'd make a move you couldn't take back. Vorth's gaze didn't waver. And you've decided to stop us? Not stop, Ghost said. Redirect. Velthric leaned forward. You can't possibly think this will end without retaliation. Ghost smiled faintly. I'm counting on it. It's part of the timing. Timing for what? Vorth asked. Ghost took a slow breath, as if weighing how much to reveal. For you to walk into the right place at the wrong time. Hours later, alarms rippled through the Trevani fleet. Their long-range sensors lit up with phantom signals, human ships where there should be none, patrol routes blocked by sudden mining operations, safe lanes cluttered with unregistered cargo haulers. Velthric stormed into the command deck. How did they get there so fast? They didn't, Vorth said grimly. They were always there. We just didn't see them. In the observation gallery, Ghost watched the fleet maneuver, every motion feeding into the trap. His voice carried through the comms to the bridge. You're drifting towards Sector 5, Ghost said conversationally. Lovely spot. Great view of the pulsar. Velthric hissed into the mic. What's in Sector 5? A surprise, Ghost said. I hope you like it. By the time the Trevani realized, their formation was boxed in. To port, human cruisers decloaking, hulls black against the starfield. To starboard, minefields glittering like harmless debris. Behind them, cargo haulers sealing off the retreat lanes, their holds concealing more firepower than their size suggested. Velthric's voice shook. This is an act of war. Only if you want it to be, Ghost replied. Personally, I prefer to think of it as a learning opportunity. You won't get away with this. Ghost's tone was calm, almost kind. Ambassador, we're not trying to get away with anything. We're trying to make sure you survive. Vorth stepped forward on the hololink. What's the real objective, Ghost? Ghost's eyes were steady. To end the war before it starts. Not just between us, between you, the Droskan Combine, and anyone else who thinks they can push their borders a little farther. Velthric's frills quivered. You think you can dictate the galaxy's politics? I think we already have, Ghost said. On the Trevani bridge, an officer called out, incoming transmission from the Droskan fleet, they're standing down. Velthric's breath caught. Standing down? Why? Because, Ghost's voice came over the comm, we sent them a copy of the conversation you were planning to have with them next month. The one where you discuss dividing human territory. Velthric stared at the holoscreen. That meeting was classified. I know, Ghost said. You're welcome. The fleet hung motionless in the trap. No shots fired. No explosions. Just the silent knowledge that every path out had been anticipated. You've been preparing this for months, Vorth said. Longer, Ghost replied. But you only started noticing recently. Which means we timed it right. Velthric sat back, voice tight. So what now? You hold us here until we sign your terms. No, Ghost said. You're free to go. Both aliens froze. Free? Of course, Ghost said, rising from his chair. But you'll go knowing that if you step out of line again, we'll do this, without the courtesy of a conversation. As he walked toward the exit, Velthric called after him. Why, Ghost? The human paused at the door. Because you never see me until I'm gone. And by then, the damage is done. Hours later, as the Trevani fleet limped away, Vorth stood at the viewport beside Velthric. You know what the humans just did? Velthric's frills twitched. They humiliated us. Vorth shook his head slowly. No. They saved us from ourselves. And they made sure we'll never forget it. In the quiet of the human command ship, Ghost set his coffee on the console and finally allowed his smile to fade. The trap had sprung perfectly. But the real game, the one that would decide the next century, was only beginning. The Ghost sat at the center of the council chamber like a misplaced piece of home decor, relaxed, smiling faintly, as if the galaxy's most volatile summit wasn't spiraling into the kind of tension that cracked civilizations. The other delegates didn't share his calm. Ambassador Viker of the Listran Confederacy had abandoned the formal posture of interstellar diplomacy and was pacing, tendrils flicking in agitation. The Sharik's armored form hunched over the table, claws tapping a staccato rhythm like a war drum. Even the KRYL ambassador, usually unreadable behind mirrored eye plates, had shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Human, Viker spat the word as though it were acidic. Your fleet is violating neutral space. Either you recall them, or this council. Votes to censure Earth, Ghost finished for him smoothly, pouring himself another cup of tea from the porcelain set he'd brought along. I've read the bylaws. Twice. Very thorough. Very boring. He took a sip. And quite unenforceable. That last sentence landed like a blade across the table. The Sharik rumbled. Are you threatening us? Ghost smiled, not broadly, not cruelly, but with that infuriating softness humans reserve for a child insisting the stove wasn't hot. Not at all. Threats are crude, loud. I prefer inevitabilities. Outside the station, inevitability was gathering. From the shadow of the gas giant's rings, sleek silhouettes slid into position. Dozens of human warships, each hull painted a deep, light-drinking black. No running lights. No visible weapon ports. They just were, like predators in tall grass. They hadn't been detected by standard sensors, not because of stealth tech alone, but because Ghost had leaked false fleet movement data weeks ago. The Council's eyes had been watching the wrong stars. Back inside, Ghost leaned forward, voice low and almost intimate. Do you know why they call me Ghost? The KRYL ambassador tilted his head, lenses whirring. Because you vanish from battlefields before you can be targeted. Ghost nodded. Close. But not quite. I don't vanish. I'm just never where my enemies think I am. By the time they realize I've been standing behind them, it's already over. His gaze swept the room, meeting each alien's eyes, or the nearest approximation their biology allowed. This council thinks it's negotiating terms. In reality, it's already negotiating surrender. The first alerts hit seconds later. A Sharik aide burst through the chamber doors, eyes wide. Admiral! Multiple human signatures, inside the ring shadow, within firing range. Gasps. Shouts. The Sharik slammed a clawed fist onto the table, glaring at Ghost. You dare bring weapons to a diplomatic summit? Of course not, Ghost said mildly. The weapons brought themselves. I simply invited them to wait outside. The Listran ambassador's voice cracked with fury. This is coercion. Pure barbarism. Ghost set down his tea, folding his hands neatly. No, Ambassador. Barbarism is what happens when talks fail. This is persuasion. Out beyond the station's hull, the humans sent a single, precise transmission. It contained no threats, no ultimatums, just a live feed from Earth's orbital yards, where an unfinished planet killer hung suspended like an iron moon. The message was silent, but the implication was deafening. Back in the chamber, Ghost let the silence linger until the weight of it became unbearable. Then he spoke, conversational as if discussing weather. Here's the situation. Your fleets are stretched thin. Your homeworlds are exposed. My ships are here now, and you didn't even know until I wanted you to. I'm offering a resolution that saves everyone's pride and keeps your populations breathing. The Sharrock bared his fangs. And if we refuse? Ghost's smile didn't change, but his eyes lost their warmth entirely. Then you get to learn the other reason they call me Ghost. Because no one ever finds the bodies. The chamber froze. Even the air seemed to still. It wasn't entirely bluster. The files locked in Ghost's personal AI contained the locations of every military supply line in the represented empires. He had sabotage crews already in position, quietly waiting for his signal. He didn't need to fire a shot in this room to start a war they couldn't win. Vika finally sat, deflating slightly. What do you want? Ghost leaned back, satisfied. A new trade compact. One that recognizes human shipping rights across all neutral corridors, lowers tariffs on Earth goods, and grants joint jurisdiction over the Orion Spur mining sectors. The KRYL ambassador's lenses clicked. That's a third of the Spur. Closer to half, really, Ghost corrected. But I'm being generous. And if we agree? Vika asked, voice flat. Ghost gestured toward the window. Then those ships outside turn around and vanish back into the dark. And we all pretend tonight was just a spirited debate among friends. The debate dragged for hours. Petty legal points, translation ambiguities, ceremonial objections. Ghost let them talk. Every minute they argued was another minute they imagined the silent fleet outside, another minute they felt the clock ticking toward catastrophe. When the last signature was on the compact, Ghost stood, gathered his tea set, and gave them a crisp nod. Pleasure doing business. No one responded. They just watched as he walked out, the way one might watch a tiger leave the room, grateful, but unwilling to move until the danger was well and truly gone. Minutes later, the human ships pulled away, disappearing into the gas giant's shadow and then into nothing at all. On the station's comm logs, there was no sign they'd ever been there. That was the thing about Ghost's victories. They left no trace. Only new lines on a map, signed by hands that still trembled. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the man himself was already planning the next inevitability.